A pleasant day to each and everyone who will be watching this video. I am Maria Tricia Nicole G. Anuran, studying at Lemery Colleges under Bachelor of Technology and Livelihood Education. So this will be my report in readings in Philippine history. To start the discussion, let me introduce you the Lesson 8, which entitled The Philippines under the United States. So first, let us start in the key concept. The first one is the Commonwealth. Commonwealth is the 10-year transition period that replaced the insular government of the United States in the Philippines and prepared the government for independence. So ang Commonwealth, ito ay sang pamahalaan, mankomunidad, o sang bansa, kilala rin bilang republika. Ito ay isang pangkat ng mga tao o grupo ng mga pangkat na may pangkaraniwang layunin upang mapainam ang kanilang mga sarili, tulungan ang bawat isa, at magpamahagi ng kaalaman at mga mapagkukunan ng mga kailangan. The second one is the Filipinization. This is a process of placing Filipinos in positions of responsibility and grant them as much autonomy as possible and encouraging American government officials in the Philippines to retire or leave their positions. So, ang Filipinization naman, ito ang pagtatalaga ng mga Pilipino sa posisyon during American period upang sila ay mamuno at mahikayat na bumaba sa posisyon ang mga Amerikano. The third one is the homesteading. It is a policy of the U.S. colonial government in the Philippines to attract settlers from overcrowded regions to settle in what was seen as underpopulated southern Philippines. Ang homesteading naman, ito ay pagpapa-occupy ng mga Americans sa kapwa nila ng kapirasong lupain sa Pilipinas, kung saan pwede silang manirahan at pwede nila yon pagtamnan for at least 5 years. And the last one here in the key concept is the Kalibapi or the Kapisanan ng Paglilingkod sa Bagong Pilipinas. In English, it is the Association for the Service to the New Philippines. This is a fascist Filipino political party during the Japanese occupation of the Philippines that replaced all political parties when the latter was declared dissolved. So ang Kalibapi naman ay naging makinarya sa propaganda ng mga Hapones upang makuha ang simpatsya at pakikiisa ng mga Pilipino. Nang lumaon, ito ay itinatag na isang partidong pampolitika. Binuwag ang lahat ng mga lapiang pampolitika at tanging Kalibapi lamang ang partidong pampolitika na pinahintulutang umiral ng mga Hapones. To formally begin the discussion, let us first discuss the lesson introduction under the Lesson 8. The turn of the 20th century was a turbulent period for the country. The United States entered the scene as new colonizers and left an indelible mark in the Philippine identity and institutions. While the Filipinos fought the United States in the bloody Philippine-American War, which lasted for more than a decade, the entirety of the country was subjected to U.S. control, creating a colonial state under the auspices of the United States. This state saw the privileging of the Filipino Christian elite into what historian Michael Cullinan referred to as the Filipino-American Collaborative Empire. The continuing battle for Philippine independence moved from the battlefield to political negotiations, and in 1935, the 10-year transitional period called the Philippine Commonwealth was set up. Manuel L. Quezon of the Nacionalista Party was elected president and easily won re-election in 1941. But the sudden attack of the Japanese put things to halt as World War II in the Pacific broke out. As the Allied forces led by the United States won the war in 1945, the Philippines was declared independent in 1946, leaving a country devastated by war to fend for itself with its newly gained independence. So this lesson looks at three representative texts from this tumultuous period, such as the petition letter against American Governor General Wood, whose acts as the American executive were seen by Filipino leaders as anti-Filipino. And this is what I will discuss to you. The Filipino Grievances against Governor General Wood, or ang hinaing ng mga Pilipino kay Governor General Wood. So, sino ba si Governor General Wood? Kilalanin natin siya sa discusyong ito. The question of how long U.S. colonial rule should last in the Philippines changed according to which party occupied the White House, as the U.S. President appointed American colonial officials and dictated the policy toward the Philippines. The first decade of colonial rule was dominated by the U.S. Republican Party, whose presidents William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, and William Howard Taft, who advocated about 2 generations of U.S. hegemony in the Philippines. The Democrats, on the other hand, wanted independence to be granted sooner. So who are the Democrats? The Democrats are pertaining to people who are supporters of democracy. Yun po ang tawag sa mga tao na sumusuport sa demokrasya. They are Democrats. And on the other hand, they wanted independence to be granted sooner. So noon pa man, gusto na talaga ng Democrats na magkaroon ng kalayaan. The victory of the Democrats bet Woodrow Wilson in the 1912 U.S. election ushered a tide of change that reached Philippine shores with the appointment of Francis Burton Harrison as Governor General. Harrison was tasked with the Philippinization of the colonial state, broadening the participation of Filipinos in political affairs, and overseeing the transfer of leadership of the Moro and Mountain provinces from the U.S. Army to Filipino officials. In 1916, the U.S. Congress passed the Philippine Autonomy Act, or Jones Law, which created a new bicameral legislature composed of the upper and lower houses. From 29% in 1913, the proportion of American officials shrunk to 6% in 1919. So from the time the Americans arrived in the Philippines in 1898, Filipinos persistently demanded to give them independence. So simula pa lang nang dumating yung mga Amerikano dito sa Pilipinas, ang gusto na agad nating mga Pilipino noon ay mabigyan tayo ng kalayaan. Kasi katatapos lang tayong sakupin ng mga Espanyol. Sumunod naman itong mga Amerikano. Di ba, gugustuhin talaga natin ng kalayaan. So American colonial officials did not say no to them because it would surely derail their effort to pacify them. So, hindi naman tayo hinindian ng mga Amerikano. Hindi sila nag-no sa atin. Hindi nila sinabing, hindi namin kayo bibigyan ng independence. Kasi, madederail yung effort nila na patahimikin tayo. Dahil meron silang plano. So, ang ginawa nila, they appointed Filipino politicians to key government positions. Nagtalaga na lang sila ng mga Pilipino sa government positions. Binigyan nila ang mga Filipino politician ng posisyon sa government. Hoping that by doing so, they will forget their desire for independence. Ginawa nila yon kasi akala nila makakalimutan natin humingi ng independence mula sa kanila. So the appointment of Francis Burton Harrison as Governor General and the passage of the Jones Law in 1916 changed the political landscape in the Philippines. So in 1920, the Democrats lost the presidency, and President Warren Harding appointed Leonard Wood and William Cameron Forbes to investigate if the Philippines satisfied the conditions set by the Jones Law. So the defeat of the Democrats in the 1920 presidential elections had a devastating effects on the aspiration of the Filipinos to be given independence. Months after President Warren Harding was sworn into office, he sent Leonard Wood and William Cameron Forbes, or the Wood-Forbes Mission kung tawagin, to the Philippines to check if the Filipinos have already satisfied the conditions set by the Jones Law. Are you familiar to the Jones Law? So what is Jones Law? The Jones Law was an organic act passed by the United States Congress. The law replaced the Philippine Organic Act of 1902 and acted as a constitution of the Philippines from its enactment until 1934, when Tidings-McDuffie Act was passed. This turn led eventually to the Commonwealth of the Philippines and to independence from the United States. The Jones Law created the first fully elected Philippine legislature. So this act is to declare the purpose of the people of United States as to the future political status of the people of the Philippine Islands and to provide a more autonomous government for those islands. So that's what Jones Law means. So after the team of Wood and Forbes conducted an exhaustive investigation and visited 48 provinces and 449 municipalities, the report they submitted was not favorable to the cause of the Filipino politicians. But why? It's because it exposed the corruption and patronage system that became prevalent in government-owned and controlled corporations during the Harrison era, including the banking malpractice that bankrupted the Philippine National Bank. Quezon and other nationalistas were offended by the report because it insinuated that Filipino leaders were corrupt and incompetent and therefore do not deserve yet to be given independence. So after Leonard Wood retired from the U.S. Army in 1921, President Harding appointed him. Noong naluklok siya sa posisyon noong October 15, 1921, sumang-ayon na lamang ang mga politikong Pilipino dahil naniniwala sila na babalik rin naman sa US si Wood para sa pagka-presidente sa University of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, si Wood ay nag-stay sa Pilipinas at nanatiling gobernador general hanggang siya ay mamatay noong taong 1927. During his governorship, he monitored local politicians, trimmed the bloated budget, vetoed legislation designed to benefit Filipino politicians, appointed U.S. military men in key executive positions, and strengthened the powers of the Governor General. So imagine, napaka-anti-Filipino nga naman talaga ni Governor General Wood that time. So that's why nagkaroon talaga ng petisyon at hinaing ang mga Pilipino sa kanya at pati na rin sa pamamalakad niya. Isa pa sa mga dahilan kung bakit nagpetisyon ang mga Pilipino kay Governor Wood na nangyari naman noong taong 1923 Ito ay sa kadahilan ng ibinalik niya si Ray Conley. Itong si Ray Conley ay ang police chief of the Vice Squad na noon ay inakusahang tumatanggap ng mga suhol mula sa mga gambling lords. Wood did not allow Filipinos to conduct an administrative investigation on Conley. So, hindi pinayagan ni Governor Wood ang mga Pilipino na imbestigahan ang kasong yun ni Conley. At bagkos ay gumawa siya or naghalalo siya ng mga tao na mag-iimbestiga sa kaso. So, that time, Conley was acquitted, but Filipino officials was insulted. So, insulto lamang ang inabot ng mga Pilipino noong napawalang sala si Conley. So, after that incident, all Filipino officials resigned from their position, including Manila Mayor Ramon Fernandez and Justice Secretary Jose P. Laurel, who resigned from office, while Senate President Manuel Quezon and Speaker Manuel Rojas resigned as members of the Council of the State. Quezon and Rojas also ordered all nationalistas to resign from their membership in executive agencies. They refused to pass bills sponsored by Wood and attempted to override the bills he vetoed. The petition letter, Filipino Grievances against General Wood, is a joint resolution to express the hatred Filipino leaders felt against Governor General Wood and the way he ran the state's affair. So itong petition letter ay naglalaman ng mga hinanaing at puot ng mga Filipino leaders kay Governor General Wood mismo at sa pamamalakad niya sa bansa. The letter juxtaposed the earlier years of American colonial rule to the draconian leadership of Wood. So ito ay pinagsamang American colonial rule at ang draconian leadership ni Wood. Draconian means malupit, matindi, mahigpit, na yon ang na-describe sa way ng pamamahala ni Wood dito sa Pilipinas noong siya ay Governor General. So the first two paragraphs in the letter, I will read. More than a quarter of a century has elapsed since the Philippines came under the American flag, an emblem of freedom, not of subjugation, a symbol of altruism, not of selfishness or greed. American sovereignty was implanted in our country with the avowed purpose of training us in the art of self-government and granting us independence. Our good, not her gain, was to be America's aim. Our country was committed to her in trust to be conserved and developed for the benefit of our people. Believing in the sincerity of America's purpose, the Filipinos applied themselves to the task of meeting the conditions exacted of them, anxiously awaiting the day when America would honor her promise. The first 20 years of civil government were marked by mutual understanding and loyal cooperation between American and Filipinos. At the end of that period, when it seemed that the goal had finally been reached, after the President of the United States had advised the Congress that the time had come for America to fulfill her sacred pledge, Major General Leonard Wood was sent to the Philippines as Governor General. Cognizant of the part taken by General Wood in the liberation of Cuba, the Filipino people expected that under his administration, the spirit of cooperation would be maintained and that the work of political emancipation would be complete. Contrary, however, to our expectations, his conduct of government has been characterized by a train of usurpations and arbitrary acts, resulting in the curtailment of our autonomy, the destruction of our constitutional system, and the reversal of America's Philippine policy. What followed is a list of usurpations committed by Wood. So what is usurpations? Ang usurpations in Tagalog ay pangangamkam o pang-aagaw. Okay. This contained more than 20 accusations against him, such as his refusal to agree with the laws that were the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Imagine kung ano pa yung pinaka-makakabuti at pinaka-makakatulong sa mga Pilipino, yun pa ang hinindian ni Wood. He also reversed the Filipinization of government service by appointing Americans in position. Diba? Filipinization nga dapat Pilipino. Pero ang ginawa niya, pinalitan niya. Ginawa niyang Americans ang mga nasa position. He also violated the law by using certain public funds to grant additional compensation to public officials. Okay, he used the public funds dahil dinagdagan niya yung bayad o sweldo ng mga public officials which are Americans. Unduly interfered in the administration of justice. Hindi pa rin siya makatarungan. He refused to confer with the Senate on important matters. Hindi rin siya nakikipag-ugnayan sa Senado hinggil sa mga importanteng bagay na dapat pagdiskusyonan o dapat pag-usapan, pag-aralan ng mga nasa government. He created discord and disagreement between Christian and Muslim Filipinos, among others. Imagine! Gumawa pa siya ng hindi pagkakaunawaan o hindi pagkakasunduan ng mga Christian at Muslim na puro Pilipino. Mga Pilipino ay pinag-away pa niya. So the letter ended with a manifestation of the Filipino leaders' protest. It is stated as follows. So in the face of this critical situation, we, the constitutional representatives of the Filipino people, met to deliberate upon the present difficulties existing in the government of the Philippine Islands and to determine how best to preserve the supremacy and majesty of the laws and to safeguard the rights and liberties of our people, having faith in the sense of justice of the people of the United States and inspired by her patriotic example in the early days of her history, do hereby, in our behalf and in the name of the Filipino people, solemnly and publicly make known our most vigorous protest against the arbitrary acts and usurpations of the present Governor-General of the Philippine Islands, particularly against Executive Order Number 37. The consciousness of our sacred and inescapable duty to our country and our sense of loyalty to the people of the United States constrains us to denounce the foregoing acts of the present Governor-General as arbitrary, oppressive, and undemocratic. We appeal to the judgment and conscience of the American people in justification of our stand and for the vindication of our rights. For the last part of this discussion, let us move on to the analysis of the petition letter. The corruption and patronage politics of the dominant Nacionalista Party, led by Quezon and his men, have been criticized not only by Wood but also by other Filipino leaders. So si Quezon ay meron pala siyang issue ng corruption sa politiko. At ito ay hindi lamang hinusgahan ni Wood, kundi pati na rin ng iba pang mga Pilipino. So knowing that Manuel L. Quezon, who's the first President of the Commonwealth of the Philippines, had an issue of corruption. Siya din ang mukha sa 20 peso bill. So the same corruption was enabled by Governor Harrison, whose appointment Quezon himself lobbied. So, yung kay Governor Harrison na corruption, ang nag-aasikaso rin pala nun ay si Manuel L. Quezon. Thus, exaggerating and blowing things out of proportion would not be surprising. So, hindi na daw siya nakakabigla. The Nationalista Party, who dominated legislature, were using their positions to broaden their power in preparation for Philippine independence. So this time, naghahanda na ang mga nationalista para sa pagkakaroon nila ng independence. And the change of leadership from well-loved Harrison to the cold Wood was tantamount to thwarting the plans of Quezon and his men. But the grievances of the nationalistas were also not unfounded. So may basihan talaga ang mga nationalista sa hinaing nila kay Governor Wood. Before being appointed Governor General, Leonard Wood was the former military governor of the Moro province and popular with the Muslims. So bago pa man daw siya naging Governor General, si Leonard Wood ay military governor muna na naka-assign sa Moro province at kilalang-kilala siya ng mga Muslim. As Governor General, he transferred jurisdiction of Muslim areas to American-headed executive agencies and assured them that independence is still far in the future. So, nung Governor General siya, nilipat niya sa mga American yung territory ng mga Muslim. And he assured na malayo pa talagang ibigay nila ang independence sa atin. His acts as governor, while a way to monitor the nationalistas and curb their corruption, is also consistent with the U.S. Republicans' lukewarm reception to the idea of the Philippines being independent sooner than later. So, yun naman pala. Yung pag-asta niya, pag-act niya as a governor. At minomonitor na rin naman nila yung mga nationalista, including yung korupsyon na sinasabi ko nga kanina, lalo na yung kay Manuel L. Quezon. Alam naman nila yon. Isinasantabi lang nila, hinahayaan nila dahil gusto nilang gamitin yon para maging dahilan na hindi pa nila pagbibigay ng independence. Nonetheless, the petitioner revealed several interesting aspects of the quest for Filipino independence during this period. So, nalaman natin kung paano sinamantala ng ilang politikong Pilipino ang issue ng pananakop ng mga Amerikano. Ngunit, naging mahirap din tiyakin kung pinaglalaban nila ang kalayaan para sa kapakanan ng pagiging malayang bansa o para sa kanilang kapakanan sa susunod. An infamous quote from Quezon comes to mind. I would rather have a government run like hell by Filipinos than a government run like heaven by Americans. The petition letter also shows the tenacity of Filipino leaders during this period. So, ang petition letter na ito ay nagpapakita rin ng katatagan ng mga pinunong Pilipino noong panahong ito. Wood was not free from fault, so they wanted him to be accountable for his conscious acts to slow down Filipinization. So, hindi nakaligtas si Wood sa mga kasalanan. Kaya, ang gusto ng mga Pilipino ay managot siya sa kanyang mga ginawa, lalo na ang sirain ang Filipinization. Upon Wood's death in 1927, the governors that succeeded him lost interest in creating a robust American-controlled executive in the Philippines. So, nung namatay si Wood, hindi na itinuloy ng mga naiwan niya ang pananakop pa sa Pilipinas. Hindi na nila pinush na kontrolin pa ang mga Pilipino. The Filipino campaign for independence also gained momentum as the lobbying for Philippine independence was realized through the passage of the Philippine Independence Act or the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934. So that would be the end of my discussion. Thank you guys for spending time watching my video, lending your ears, and I hope you learn from me. So again, this is Maria Tricia Nicole G. Anuran, and this is the Lesson 8 entitled The Philippines under United States. Thank you guys!